The morning in Columbus started like any other. The sun peeked over the rooftops, warm and lazy, spilling light across quiet streets. Inside a small wooden house on the corner of Maple Street, Helen Parker folded her son's favorite blanket for the last time. The house smelled of cinnamon and dust, like all the years that had passed through it. She touched the frame of the door one last time, tracing the marks where she had once measured her son's height. Back when life still made sense. At 73, Helen thought she had seen everything life could throw at her, until that day. Her son Daniel had called the night before. His voice was flat, polite. "Mom, we'll pick you up early. Pack light, okay?" She smiled, not realizing what pack light really meant. Now she stood by the window with her suitcase, small and neat. Her daughter-in-law, Lisa, waited outside, scrolling on her phone, engine still running. Helen locked the door, looked at the porch, the flowers she had planted, the cracked mailbox. "Goodbye, old friend," she whispered. The car ride was quiet. Helen tried to fill it with small talk, but her words floated and died in the air. Lisa checked her watch. Daniel focused on the road. No music, no laughter, just miles of distance, and silence thick enough to taste. After an hour, Helen realized they weren't heading to her son's home. Instead, they pulled into the parking lot of a small regional airport. Confused, she asked, "Are we picking someone up?" Daniel didn't meet her eyes. "You'll understand soon." Inside the terminal, people hurried past with luggage and coffee cups. Daniel stopped near a bench. He looked pale. "Mom," he began, voice trembling. "Lisa and I talked. We can't take care of you anymore. The house needs repairs and we just can't manage it." Helen blinked. "What do you mean?" "We bought you a ticket," Lisa said quickly, handing her a folder, "to stay with Aunt Margaret in Florida, just for a while." Helen opened the folder. One ticket, one way, and no cash. "Daniel," she whispered, "I thought we were family." He sighed, rubbing his face. "You'll be better off there. Please understand." The loudspeaker announced another flight. A child laughed somewhere nearby. Helen's world, however, stood still. They hugged her, out of guilt more than love, and left. She watched their car disappear into traffic. Her hands trembled. The ticket slipped and landed on the floor. She sat on that cold bench for hours. The sun moved, shadows shifted, people came and went. Nobody noticed the old woman with the small blue suitcase and eyes that had lost their home. By evening, the loudspeaker called for the last flight of the day. Helen looked down at her ticket and quietly tore it in half. Her heart had already gone further than any plane could take her. She left the terminal. The night air bit at her cheeks. She walked until her legs ached, until the city lights turned into stars. When she finally stopped, she was standing in front of a motel, the kind that smelled of old coffee and loneliness. Inside, a woman behind the counter looked up. "Need a room, ma'am?" Helen hesitated, her voice trembling. "Just for tonight." The woman smiled gently. "Nora." She introduced herself. "Don't worry, we'll figure things out." Helen nodded, not yet realizing that "for tonight" would turn into months. That night, Helen couldn't sleep. The clock ticked like a heartbeat. She stared at the ceiling, replaying her son's words, "You'll be better off." The next morning, she looked out the motel window. The parking lot glistened with dew, and beyond it, the world looked both cruel and full of possibility. Helen picked up her notebook, flipped to a clean page, and wrote one line. "If life sends you away, build your own way back." Morning came soft and gray. The hum of the highway outside the motel was the first sound Helen heard. For a few seconds, she forgot where she was. Then she saw the yellow curtains, the old air conditioner, the coffee maker humming on the desk, and remembered. It wasn't home. It was nowhere. But it was hers. For now. Nora knocked gently. "You hungry, sweetheart? I've got pancakes left over from breakfast." Helen smiled faintly. "You're too kind." Nora shrugged. "Kindness doesn't expire, honey. Coffee's free, too." Helen ate slowly, watching a family in the lobby. a young couple with 2 kids laughing about something small and silly. Their voices made the air feel alive again. For a moment, she could almost pretend that Daniel and Lisa were sitting there too, but pretending had its limits. She closed her eyes. "Stop it," she told herself. They made their choice. Now make yours. That afternoon, she asked Nora if there was any work around. "Work?" Nora blinked. "You mean here?" "Yes," Helen said. "I can clean, fold towels, answer phones. I just need something to do." Nora studied her for a moment. "You know what, Helen? You remind me of my mom. Strong woman. Always found a way." She nodded toward the office. "Come by tomorrow. We'll see what we can do." It wasn't much, but it was a start. That night, Helen sat at the small desk, her notebook open again. She wrote, "Day 2, still breathing, still here, still me." She looked at those words until they blurred, until tears smudged the ink. But she didn't close the notebook. She let the tears dry right there, like proof. Weeks turned into something like routine. Helen cleaned rooms, made coffee, answered phones. The staff began to like her. They called her Miss Helen and brought her little gifts, muffins, a scarf, a smile. Sometimes travelers stayed for a night, sometimes for weeks, and she'd hear bits of their stories, pieces of lives that kept moving while hers stood still. But little by little, she began to move too. Not fast, not loudly, just enough to notice the difference. One evening, as she was wiping tables in the lobby, a man in a worn-out coat entered. He looked tired, maybe older than he was. He smiled. "You still got rooms, ma'am." She nodded. "We always do." He paid cash, no luggage, just a small backpack. As he walked away, Helen noticed something about his eyes, the same kind of lost she once carried herself. Later that night, she found him sitting outside under the buzzing motel sign, staring at the dark sky. "Can't sleep?" she asked softly. He shook his head. "Too many ghosts." She smiled. "They visit me, too." They talked. His name was Gary, a retired truck driver, widower, moved from town to town since his wife's death. No kids, no family, just roads and memories. When she mentioned she was working there after being left at the airport, he nodded slowly. "That's cold," he said, "but maybe cold wakes us up." Helen thought about that. Maybe it does. From that night, they'd talk sometimes. Not much, just small pieces of life shared between 2 quiet souls. It wasn't friendship yet, but it was something. One rainy afternoon, Helen came across an envelope slipped under her door. No name. Just her room number written in shaky handwriting. Inside, a small note. "I saw what your son did at the airport. I work there. People still talk about it. You didn't deserve that. None of us do." She froze. Her hands shook. Someone had seen. Someone remembered. She wasn't invisible after all. That night, she couldn't stop thinking about the note. She reread it over and over until she whispered to herself, "Maybe I'm not forgotten. Maybe I'm free." She turned off the light and lay down, her notebook open on the nightstand. She wrote, "Day 47. I'm learning to breathe without permission." The rain kept tapping at the window like it was applauding quietly. 2 days later, Nora walked in, waving a small newspaper. "Look who made it into the human interest section," she grinned. Helen frowned. "What do you mean?" Nora unfolded the paper. There, in small print, was an article. "Elderly woman abandoned at airport finds new home and purpose." Helen's breath caught. There was no name, no photo, just her story. Someone must have told it. Gary chuckled from behind the counter. "You're famous now, Miss Helen." She shook her head. "No, I'm just seen." And that night, for the first time in months, she slept deeply. No nightmares, no ghosts, just peace. Morning came sharp and bright, the kind of light that leaves no place to hide. Helen brewed motel coffee, the thin kind, and carried 2 cups to the lobby desk. Nora took one. Gary took the other. Big day? Nora asked. Just another day, Helen said. But it wasn't. The phone on the counter rang, not the motel line, her own. The old ringtone she had never changed. She glanced at the screen. Unknown number. Local area code. She let it ring twice more and then answered. Hello? A woman's voice. Calm, careful. Mrs. Parker, my name is Emma Coulter. I write for the Columbus Herald. I believe a short piece ran about you last week. I'd like to listen. Only listen. No cameras, no pressure. Your terms. Helen didn't speak right away. She watched dust float in the morning light. Listening, she said, is rare. Coulter waited. Helen heard traffic pass outside, the soft clatter of housekeeping down the hall. Finally, she said, Come at 1. No recorder. If my story's true, you won't forget it. Thank you, Coulter whispered. I won't. Helen ended the call and set the phone down. Nora watched her with a sideways smile. You don't owe the world anything, Nora said. I know, Helen answered softly, but maybe someone out there is where I was and needs a way out. She worked the next hours with quiet focus. Check-ins, fresh towels. A child's lost glove returned to a small, grateful hand. She wrote down room rates for a man with shaky fingers, replaced the lobby flowers, smoothed the front desk mat until it lay flat. Order 1 inch at a time. At 1 o'clock, the door opened. Cold air followed a woman in a dark coat and flat shoes. No camera, no crew. Just a notebook and a face that knew how to be gentle. Ms. Coulter? Emma, the woman said. And you're Helen. I am. They sat by the lobby window. Sun on wood. The hum of the soda machine. Emma opened her notebook, then closed it again. May I just hear you first? She asked. Helen nodded. She began with the bench at the regional airport, with a one-way ticket, with the sentence that still scraped her bones, You'll be better off. Her voice didn't break. It didn't need to. Truth carried the weight by itself. The worst part, she said, staring at the window, wasn't the leaving. It was catching myself making excuses for them, saying they're busy, they have a life, houses are expensive, as if betrayal becomes polite if you iron it. Emma didn't rush to fill the silence. She let it breathe. Then softly, What did you do next? I found a bed, Helen said. Then I built a morning. She told Emma about Nora, about the towels, about writing day 2, still breathing, in a cheap notebook and letting tears dry on the page like a seal, about Gary and the way grief sits in a man's shoulders long after he stops lifting anything heavy, about the envelope under her door, about the article that didn't say her name and the night she slept without ghosts. Emma's eyes shone, but her voice stayed level. Helen, may I write this? No names, no motel, no son or daughter-in-law, just a voice steady and clear, a woman the world didn't break. You may, Helen said, but end it with this. She wasn't waiting to be found. She was waiting to walk again. Emma wrote the sentence slowly, as if carving it. Then she closed the notebook and stood. Thank you, she said. I'll treat this like a living thing. After she left, quiet settled back into the lobby. The soda machine hummed again. Nora placed a lemon candy on the desk without looking up. For your courage, she said. It's just a day, Helen said. Exactly, Nora replied. You showed up for it. The afternoon drifted by. Helen finished the banking, filed receipts, marked 3 rooms ready. In the lull between check-ins, she opened her notebook. Day 63. I can feel my hands again. They belong to work, and to me. At 6, the sky darkened early. Freeway noise grew into a steady river. Helen made a fresh pot of coffee and set out paper cups in neat rows. The door burst open. Cold air, expensive perfume, and the one face she did not expect today, Lisa. For a moment, nobody spoke. Nora glanced up, then down. Gary. Halfway to the door, stopped. Lisa stepped forward, jaw tight. Hello, Helen. She hadn't said Mom in months. Helen folded her hands. "Lisa," she said evenly. "Can I help you?" "You already have," Lisa said. "You helped make us a spectacle." She pulled a folded newspaper from her bag and slapped it on the counter. The headline caught the lobby light. She was left at the airport and chose to walk. No names, no photo of Helen, just the outline of a life everyone could recognize. "This is you," Lisa hissed. "Everyone knows it. The neighbors know. Daniel's boss knows. You made us look like monsters." Helen stared at the paper. Then she looked up. "I didn't make you anything," she said quietly. "I told the truth about me." Lisa's eyes flashed. "You think you're brave? You're selfish. You always have been." "Maybe," Helen said. "Maybe I was selfish when I learned to live with less rather than beg for more." She took a breath. "If I wanted the world to revolve around me, Lisa, why am I standing here behind a desk and not you?" The sentence hung in the air like a bell after it struck. Lisa's mouth opened and closed. She looked around, at Nora, at Gary, at the neat rows of cups, at Helen's steady hands. "We're done," she said finally. "Don't call again." She turned and left. The door shut hard. Silence followed, not heavy, clean. Nora came over and set a hand on Helen's arm. "You held your ground," she murmured. Helen nodded once. "Ground is all I own." They worked the evening without speaking much. Gary brought in a stack of towels. Nora checked the logs. Helen restocked the candy bowl. At closing time, Nora locked the front door, then hesitated. "She'll talk to Daniel," Nora said. "I know. He'll call." "I know that too. Are you ready?" "No," Helen said, "but I'm still here." She went back to her room, turned on the lamp. The cheap shade cast a golden oval on the table. Helen opened her notebook and wrote, "If they come with fury, answer." Noon arrived with a hush, the kind that made even the air hold its breath. Daniel stood just inside the doorway, hat twisting in his hands. Helen motioned for him to sit, and when he did, the chair creaked under the weight of everything they hadn't said in years. For a moment, neither spoke. The clock ticked. The highway groaned in the distance. Finally, Helen broke the silence. "Coffee?" Daniel looked up, startled. "Yes, please." She poured 2 cups. Black for him, sweet for her, like old times before words had started to taste like blame. When she handed him the cup, his hand trembled. "Mom," he began, "I don't know where to start." Helen sat down opposite him. "Start where you lost me." He took a breath that sounded like a confession. "I thought I was doing the right thing. You said the house needed repairs. Lisa said we couldn't afford both homes, and You chose convenience," Helen interrupted softly. "Don't wrap it in concern." Daniel winced but didn't argue. "I was scared," he admitted. "Scared of turning into you, of working forever, worrying about everything. I thought if we just cut ties, it'd be cleaner, easier." Helen studied his face, the lines she didn't remember, the exhaustion that mirrored her own. "Did it get easier?" she asked. Daniel shook his head. "No. It got quiet. Too quiet." Helen smiled sadly. "Quiet is not peace, Daniel. It's what comes before you learn how to live again." They both sipped their coffee in silence. The bitterness between them began to settle, no longer sharp, just real. After a while, Daniel pulled a folded envelope from his jacket. "This is yours," he said. Inside was a check. Not large, not small, just enough to matter. Helen didn't touch it. "What's this for?" "To help, to make things right." "You can't buy right," she said, voice calm, "but I'll take it, as proof that you're trying." He nodded. His eyes glistened, but he didn't wipe them. "I read everything," he said. "The article, the comments. People called you brave, but I know you didn't do it to be brave." "No," she said. "I did it to stop disappearing." The words hit him harder than any anger could. He looked down at his hands. "I'm sorry, Mom, for all of it." Helen leaned back, her shoulders relaxing. "You can be sorry," she said, "but don't stay there. It's a small room." Daniel laughed softly, a sound that cracked halfway through. "I missed your words," he said. Helen smiled. "You missed the woman who raised you. She's still here, Daniel, but she won't wait for permission anymore." Outside, the wind shifted, a car door slammed, life continued, careless and constant. Later that afternoon, Daniel walked her outside. They stood by the parking lot under the same buzzing motel sign that had once greeted her on the night she arrived with nothing but a torn ticket. "Will you come home?" he asked quietly. Helen looked at the highway, at the long ribbon of asphalt leading everywhere and nowhere. "I am home," she said. "It's not a place, it's a decision." He nodded slowly. "Then maybe I'll visit your home sometime." "You'd be welcome," she said, "if you come with your ears, not your excuses." Daniel smiled through tears. "I'll try." He hugged her, awkward, uncertain, but real. And when he left, Helen didn't feel abandoned. She felt lighter. That evening, Nora knocked on her door. "Well?" she asked, holding 2 slices of pie. "He came," Helen said. "And?" "He listened." "That's something." "It's everything," Helen whispered. They ate in silence, 2 women bound not by blood, but by the quiet understanding that comes after storms. When Nora left, Helen sat at her small desk and opened her notebook one last time. The pages were full now, days of loss, work, hope, and tiny victories. She turned to a clean page and wrote, Day 100. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about freeing both of us from the same cage. She placed the pen down and looked around her little room. Her walls, her worn blanket, the window that faced the highway. She had built a life from nothing but mornings. Her phone buzzed again, a message from the community center. "Hi, Helen. The seniors loved your workshop today. You have a gift for helping people feel seen. We'd love for you to lead next week's class, too." Helen smiled. She typed back, "I'd be honored." Then she sat back, closed her eyes, and listened to the sound of cars passing outside, each one going somewhere new, each one carrying someone who might still be searching for their own way back. Indu. The next morning, the motel was unusually bright. Helen stood by the window with her coffee, sunlight spilling across her notebook. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but she had a feeling it would be something she chose. And for the first time in a long, long while, that was enough.